Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and the good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. We love you in Canada and Africa, the Big C tribe, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful January the 27th, 2021. Rondo Deportes, bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Oh, Charlton is interesting. People are starting to put in their prop bets for the Super Bowl already. The most intriguing one is an over and under for Tom Brady of a half-yard rushing. But once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, and first responders. I know you can get more than a yard.
They can get more than a yard. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars never stop arriving. Also, all around the world, say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear, welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Man, I'm pausing, Big C. I'm pausing just like the people trying to go up to Nevada, Lake Tahoe, or even Reno, and the CHP is saying just stay home because there's thundering, lightning, and thunderstorms and snowstorms on the Sierra Nevada mountains. So hopefully everybody's going to stay safe. But I'll never pause on our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, why should everybody care?
Well, Charlton, as we go through tough times in America, our veterans have gone through even tougher times. They've come back home from their tours of duty and service, Charlton, and suffered horrific mental, physical, and financial injuries, Charlton, in trying to assimilate back into society. Unfortunately, Charlton, over 24 a day have turned to suicide.
Wow.
An horrific number, horrific disease that America needs to find a way to fight a battle against, Charlton. I know people are preoccupied with COVID-19 and how they're doing financially, but our veterans also provided us with an opportunity and a way of life, Charlton, to even be in that position. And this country has turned its back on so many great veterans, Charlton, something it should be ashamed of.
Yeah.
We give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, but this needs to be a concerted American effort. When our veterans went and fought for us, they didn't ask questions, and we should fight back for them without asking questions, Charlton, and find a way to stop suicide in America.
Yeah, we will definitely do our part. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. You can get our veterans some help. Also, very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants and the Say Hey Kid, as well as the home run King Barry Bonds. When you reach out to them, just tell them Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country to put people back to work, just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. Sports teams are doing it too. Watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com. Quicken Loans underwrites most of our loans on the wholesale side. Also, I want to thank Comcast Spotlight and Xfinity Comcast TV for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our apps pop up, and I really do appreciate the way things have grown with Big C Sports. When we started 6 years ago, there were no apps to pop up, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's called progression, continuing the growth, continuing to learn and expand. I think we've done a pretty fair job of it.
Yeah, we are definitely doing our best to bring your sports the way we like to do it, and hopefully you like it. It's all fair in love and war. I want to take a look at, I know a lot of things are going on in the world of sports, and I have just a lot of good things that I'm very, very happy for. One of my favorite, Bachelor is one of my favorite shows lately because they finally put a black man on there. They act like black men didn't date for about 10 years of The Bachelor, but when they realized they put a black man on as The Bachelor, would you believe, Big C? They've had the highest ratings in the history of the universe, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I guess you call that jungle fever, Charlton.
Yeah, it's all... It's what you call. It could be called Rocky Road Ice Cream too, Big C. It's all fair in love and war. I really appreciate the way things look. At the same time, I'm looking at Super Bowl, Big C, Super Bowl 55, and the teams are very different from each other. A lot of people may not think that. But think about this. Tampa was a much tougher matchup. I think so physically. They're just bigger. Kansas City is faster, more explosive, more dynamic. Which brings to the table the question, Big C, how much are the Bucs, and when you think about Kansas City, how may the Bucs take advantage of the edge that they have in the size? Because it might behoove them to have a game that's a management game from a standpoint, not trying to keep up with the track team, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, in the NFL, size is not everything. I mean, when you look at the physicality of the teams that the Chiefs have had to face in the playoffs, Charlton, and throughout the year.
Yeah.
Regardless of the size of the team, Charlton, you tried to keep up with this track team.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to run the ball consistently against the Kansas City Chiefs. They've knocked everybody down that has tried to do that.
Yeah.
You saw that with the Cleveland Browns. You saw it with the Buffalo Bills, that you could not establish a running attack. And I think that's what the Buccaneers need to be able to do.
Yeah.
They need to be able to gain at least 120 yards on the ground to keep pace with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, Buffalo's leading rusher had about 88 yards. That was Josh Allen. Tampa has to run the football. They had success running the ball last week when they went up to Lambeau Field and beat Green Bay. So the Buccaneers do need to slow the game down. Tampa has to run the ball, control the clock. You must do that against the Chiefs, as you were saying. You have offensive coordinator Brian Leftwich, Big C. You have Arians and then Brady. They need to run the ball, control the clock, and eliminate the big plays and keep it in front. You got to keep it in front of you all the time. They just don't want to get into a game like last time where they had to come from behind. Big C, if you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, they live by the big play. It may bite them at some point in time, but it hasn't happened in the last couple of years. The Chiefs do live by that big play. As much as you think they won't force the ball downfield and hit the home run, it's always coming. It's like that fastball. You always know it's going to come, Big C. As long as Tampa makes them earn everything and they run the clock and control the ball, I think that's the way they have a shot. They got to play a slow-down game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, everybody has tried to play a slow-down ball control game. I mean, you look at Baltimore early in the year when they played Baltimore. They tried to slow it down because they're a running attack, Charlton. But what happens when you're trying to run the ball and slow it down? All of a sudden, the Chiefs hit you with a couple of big scores in a hurry.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, you have to scrap your game plan because you can no longer run the ball to try to stay in the game. You saw that with the Cleveland Browns. This was a run-oriented team when they came into the playoffs.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they had to scrap that because they were down by 2 scores, and they were not going to be able to run the ball consistently enough against the Chiefs to stay in the game. We saw it last year in the playoffs when Derrick Henry rolled into town. All of a sudden, he ran out of steam before the first quarter was over because his team was so far behind. The Chiefs were on cruise control. I mean, you can come in with the best of intentions. Defensively, when you look at the Buccaneers and the aggressiveness of their linebackers, if they're attacking the line of scrimmage, you got to realize all those underneath and crossing routes that the Chiefs run. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, they will gouge you running across the middle of the field at about a 10 to 12-yard depth, Charlton. And Patrick Mahomes will just release that ball to him. Just a long handoff really is what it is because they picked up adequate yards to put you either in a second and short or another first down situation. So it's going to behoove this Buccaneers defense and their defensive coordinator What can they do to slow this team down? Because if you recall last game that they played, Charlton, about week 12,
Yeah.
Todd Bowles' defense was down 17 points before they could blink an eye.
Yeah, you got to do that. You got to blink an eye fast, because if you don't blink faster, they might find a way to get past it. But keep in mind that the Chiefs a little bit different. Offensive going to have some new linemen in there. The tackles could be a problem. One thing is clear to me, the Chiefs' ability, not just on the edges, but with their O-line in general, to stand up against that rush with Barrett and Sue and JPP. He's doing his thing, at least he did his thing last week in Green Bay against touchdown Aaron Rodgers. Pretty much anyone of that front seven, they can keep the pocket clean consistently with their line. That'll be a major key in the game. I know it's got to be a blitz if you're Tampa, and take your chances on wearing down touchdown Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion. But when you think about that, if you're going to blitz, Big C, the secondary could be an issue for the Bucs. The young secondary of Tampa versus that pass attack. Can they play disciplined enough for long enough? You know they're going to give up some deep passes. They did that against Green Bay. But you cannot sit back and give touchdown Patrick Mahomes to have his way. They got to blitz, but do you trust the secondary against the blitz, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, there's an old analogy in football. It's called speed kill.
Yeah.
And that's what the Kansas City Chiefs have, sometimes too much of. Because you have to pick your poison. You blitz, and who's going to pick up Damian Williams coming out of the backfield or Clyde Edwards-Helaire if you blitz? You can't leave all of those DBs that the Chiefs have one-on-one with that receiving core. Watkins, Hill, Williams, Coleman, and Kelsey.
Yeah.
You got 5 track stars, Charlton, that you can line up. So you're going to blitz all of a sudden and leave all of these guys one-on-one? We saw in the first meeting between these teams early in the season where Tyreek Hill had 200-plus yards in the first half alone.
Yeah.
I mean that's a season for a lot of NFL receivers.
Yeah.
He did that in the first half.
In the first half.
And so Todd Bowles has to be quite concerned about that he cannot leave his receivers his defensive backs one-on-one out on islands with Tyreek Hill. And then how do you cover Travis Kelce? We haven't seen him covered all year long, Charlton. And especially in last week's game against the Buffalo Bills, when Kelsey and Hill accounted for 300 yards between just the two of them. Now, if you just do that, and then if you throw any of those other receivers into the mix, Patrick Mahomes may set a Super Bowl record in passing yards.
Yeah, he may do that anyway, but I think they say it in the NFL on average, you got to get the ball out of your hands within 3 seconds. If you're blitzing, maybe they cut that down to 2, maybe 2.5 seconds. I think that's the only hope. You can't just stand back and be target practice. But when you think about it, Clyde Edwards-Helaire played last week. He most likely will be healthy again this week. Darrell Williams. And think about Bell could be impactful also. So it's not so much about the 1960s Packers out there as it's about trying to stay out of obvious passing situations that allows Bowles to dial up pressure. Bowles has to dial up pressure. That's the only reason they're in the Super Bowl. They had pressure dialed up when they were down in New Orleans. They had pressure dialed up when they were in Green Bay. And that's why Rodgers, I think he had a better game than Brady, but he also didn't have his usual good game because of the pressure, basically. They can't change it right now. You don't have to run for 150 yards, but you do have to make it balanced. If you're one-dimensional, you're going to give Bowles something to work with. So establishing the run game and staying out of long yardage is also important to Kansas City, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Kansas City constantly comes out and tries to establish the run. People tend to forget about that. They get lulled into a sleep.
Yeah.
But Kansas City will run the ball. They want to run the ball. They don't want to throw it every play.
Yeah.
Because that makes the game too easy for them. They want to make it challenging for themselves.
Yeah.
Because they understand that the weakest part of their offense is their run game.
Yeah.
So they consistently fight to establish that. Now, with the 2 new offensive linemen playing in the game, Charlton, I'm not so sure that they really will fight that hard to establish the run game.
Yeah.
They may trick people at that.
Yeah.
But you know Patrick Mahomes is going to throw the ball. And when he throws the ball out to the wide side or the short side of the field on a quick hitch pass, Charlton, all that is a long handoff.
Long handoff.
They run a lot of motion where he flicks the ball to the receivers as he's coming across.
Yeah.
They do establish the run. They just establish the run in a different format than the normal NFL team.
Yeah. It's going to be tough. It's tough, but the only option they have is pressuring and hoping they get a turnover. They did have Mahomes fumble last time when they played them down in Tampa. That's the only hope, in my opinion, unless Patrick Mahomes, got hit on by the bookies, and I doubt if that's going to happen, if that makes sense. If you look at the other side, Tom Brady, he shouldn't even be here. I mean, people will say he shouldn't be here because they had to do it on the road. Not because he's not good enough, but they had to do it on the road, and that's difficult. But they're back home now, Big C. Brady should have some opportunities. Matchup-wise, look at what they did to Green Bay. Nobody thought they would go into Green Bay and outplay Green Bay after outplaying New Orleans down in the Dome. And that's even with the acknowledgement that the Chiefs' defense is sparkled against Buffalo, but Buffalo was one-dimensional. They just had a run game primarily. With Tom Brady's ability and Kansas City overall, their defense, Big C, I think the way they construct it, I'm not concerned about their corners, but Brady's going to have to play that short game. He can't try to throw every ball downfield, and he really doesn't do that. But can the secondary stand up to this group when you think about it? Antonio Brown should play. We don't really know how healthy he'll be, but he should play. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Scotty Miller, whoever you put in there is still going to be a challenging matchup on KC's side of the defense, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I honestly do think that this secondary can hold up. And I got to differ with you on one scenario about saying that people thought that Brady shouldn't be there. I think it was 53 teammates that thought they should be in the Super Bowl down there in Tampa, and they went there. They had a mission. They went and beat 3 teams on the road, Charleston, and they come back home, get to host the Super Bowl. But when you look at this Chiefs defense, the little trouble that they've had in their pass defense has been against 2 mobile quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen. If you look at the escapability of both of those quarterbacks, how they were able to prolong plays and escape the rush of the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs pass rush is much better than what people give it credit for. A la when you have a mobile quarterback, you can buy some time. We're not going to see that mobility from a Tom Brady. You're going to see him ducking, not dodging, but ducking, trying to get underneath the pass rush, Charlton, because he does not have the legs of a Josh Allen or a Baker Mayfield. I see the Kansas City Chiefs getting at least 5 quarterback sacks in this game.
Yeah, even with old legs, you know how Ali said when you get old, your legs can't. He couldn't float like a butterfly and sting like a bee, so he had to grab them. He had to do the rope it up and grab people, Big C. He was grabbing George Foreman when he knocked him out, Big C. And Brady can't grab people, but the offensive line, they got to hear what Ali did. You got to grab some people and hope you get away with it. It's going to be a great game, in my opinion. But give me your thoughts, too. Everybody has their own opinion. Why so few Super Bowl losing teams make it back? The 49ers lost last year. Look at what happened to the Rams when they lost the previous year to the New England Patriots. They didn't make it back, basically. They got knocked out in Green Bay. Is it a curse? Is it the Super Bowl hangover or something more benign? Only 8 times in 55 years has a team that lost in a Super Bowl. Think about it. Only 8 times they've come back the next year. And when you think about it, the worst 20 minutes in Super Bowl history, over the first 50 Super Bowls, only 7 teams that lost returned to the grand stage the next season. And in the Bills in the early 90s, they accounted for nearly half of that total. And none of those 50 teams had stumbled quite like the Falcons did against the Patriots, who, I think, when you think about it, they looked at their championships and they keep getting them. But their championships ring, they had 283 diamonds as a reminder that they're there all the time. Big Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at teams not returning to the Super Bowl after losing, normally those teams didn't dominate their conference.
Yeah.
They weren't a juggernaut where they just ran through their schedule and showed up at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
A lot of those teams got there through smoke and mirrors. I mean, think about the Philadelphia Eagles just a couple of short seasons ago after they beat the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
What has happened to that organization since winning the Super Bowl? Look at the Los Angeles Rams, Charlton. The last 2 representatives of the NFC to go to the Super Bowl have done anything lately.
No.
So, and the 49ers hasn't made it either. They didn't get back.
No.
Whether they're besieged by injuries or big heads of players getting cocky and don't work as hard during the offseason, think, we've been there, we're going to go back there. This is easy. I remember that after the first championship game that we won.
Yeah.
We got there. We were thinking we were going to be back the next year. We get knocked out in the playoffs, Charlton, because I don't know if all the teammates thought that they bought into the situation, what we could go and accomplish in back-to-back victories.
Yeah.
So a lot of players look at it differently. They're just not as dedicated in the off season.
Yeah, a lot of people aren't dedicated, but on the 49ers, there's a lot of injuries too. It's a lot of different things. It's like going to Vegas. You win big one time, and you lose the other 8 years that you go to Vegas. But one particularly rough stretch, when you think about it, between 1998 and 2007, there were many stars that felt that the only of those two Super Bowls, Big C, I think it was the losers in the 1999 game, the Titans, and the 2005 Seattle Seahawks. They returned to the postseason the next year. When you think about Super Bowl losers attempting to turn wounds into scars, following two distinct approaches, Big C, they have to have the way of a healing whatever happened to them. A lot of times it's a contract situation, but sometimes it's just that they get hurt and players get banged up. As for the Super Bowl hangover, for the losers, or it's a curse, or the teams that don't make it back, whatever it is, I still think it's hard to get back, and it's good when you have a different team in there, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it's hard to get back in the NFL. They also adjust your schedule, Charlton,
Yeah.
when you're going to play a tougher schedule than what you had the previous season.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when teams do make the Super Bowl, it's because of lack of strength of schedule.
Yeah.
So they get in there, and then they turn around the following year, Charlton, and they have the second strongest schedule in the NFL,
Yeah.
and they just can't compete. You talk about injuries. Those always beset any team in the NFL that you can look at injuries that continuously occur. You spoke
Every
about
year.
that with the 49ers.
Yeah.
Everyone looked at them as a juggernaut last year, said they're going to be there for years to come with the system and roster that they had built. All of a sudden, the salary cap shows up,
Yeah.
Charlton, and you got to get rid of players. Not only that, you have players that are free agents that have an opportunity to go out on the open market and make twice as much money, 3 times as much money as you were paying
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
They're gone. So it's a rebuilding process also.
Yeah, and think about this too, Big C. Of the Super Bowl losers over the last 3 times, they're either not with their team or they're not won it. You look at last year in the Super Bowl, and now you just think about what happened last year. Jimmy G, of course, banged up, but they're talking about getting rid of a guy that got them to the Super Bowl, and there's many reasons why. You go back to the previous loser, that was Goff with the Rams. They really don't want they don't want Jared Goff down in Los Angeles, but he's there. There's a lot of cap room. And then you go back to Foles, Nick Foles, Big C. Even Carson Wentz was injured that year. Nick Foles is not playing in Philadelphia anymore. So something about the last 3 losing teams, they have talked about getting rid of their quarterback. Even Tom Brady, when they lost to New England, when they lost to Philadelphia, he's no longer with the Patriots. So oftentimes, whoever loses this game, could you imagine Patrick Mahomes not being wanted back in Kansas City if they lose? Your thoughts?
Well, no, Mr. Mahomes is going to be wherever he wants
Yeah.
to be, Charlton. But when you look at that and you look at those quarterbacks in losing the game, I
Yeah.
mean, it's stupidity that what Los Angeles is talking right now,
Yeah.
and even Philadelphia talking about moving on beyond these young quarterbacks they have, Charlton. Those are huge salary cap hits.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of media talking. They're not going anywhere. Goff is going to be in Los Angeles, and Wentz is going to be in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
They fired the coach and kept Wentz, so Wentz is going to be in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
They brought in a coach that is going to be yes man to the owner,
Yes,
and
sir.
Carson Wentz in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So the media is always trying to create stories in the offseason about which players are moving where. The only quarterback that we know is potentially going to be moving is Matthew Stafford, because he and the Detroit Lions have mutually agreed in parting ways.
Yeah.
Even Deshaun Watson, as much as he wants to get out of Houston, Houston still has the ultimate control of that situation, whether they let him go or not, because he does have a no-trade clause in his contract. So we can always speculate about which quarterback is going where,
Yep.
because what you hear on media releases, Charles. But it comes down to the team, and does a trade fit what they can do financially with their salary cap.
Yeah, it's all about the money. It's all about the money. So I think about the money, Big C, the 10 best records that could be broken in the Super Bowl, Big C, when the Chiefs and the Buccaneers kick off in Tampa. The oldest coach to win the Super Bowl, that record is held by, it's hard to guess this guy. His name is Bill Belichick, who's 66 years old when the Patriots defeated the Rams in their Super Bowl, Big C. If the Buccaneers can defeat the Chiefs, Bruce Arians would become the oldest coach to win a Super Bowl at 68 years old. Is also in pursuit of his first Super Bowl win at 68. 68 is still like an old 28, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at everybody's talking about they want these young minds in the NFL because they've been on somebody's staff
Yeah.
who may have not won a Super Bowl, generally haven't, because Bill Belichick has won most of them.
Yeah.
And they think that that's the nouveau wave of the NFL. Bruce Arians has the experience.
Yeah.
He has a Super Bowl ring as an offensive coordinator with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now this is his first bite at the apple to be the man running the show and win one also.
Yeah. Now, when you think about quarterbacks, there's so many intriguing things in Super Bowl 55, Big C. The fourth quarterback to win a Super Bowl in 3 decades. You have Brady, you have Peyton Manning, and Eli Manning. Two kids from the same mother, if that makes sense to you, Big C, to win Super Bowls in different decades. If the Buccaneers beat the Chiefs, Tom Brady will become the only quarterback to win a ring in each of his 3 decades. That would be incredible, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charlton, that's what they call father time. He's been hanging out with Tom Brady to allow him the ability to play over 3 decades at quarterback in the NFL. One of the toughest positions to play, but to play it with the proficiency that he has done this year, Charlton, to get his team after 3 road playoff wins to the Super Bowl is phenomenal. There's a lot of young quarterbacks out there still sitting around trying to figure out how does he do it.
How did he do it? How did he do it? I wonder what he's taking. There's a guy, I think Frank Thomas, he's always advertising how to take some type of formula to make you bigger, stronger, and faster. Why would a baseball player want to get bigger, stronger, and faster? It might keep you out of the Hall of Fame, if that makes sense to you, Big C. But the NFL, think about this. You have Reed trying to join an elite company. It would be elite if he wins the Super Bowl, Big C. He's been such a good coach for so many years. After waiting over 2 decades to win his first Super Bowl as a head coach, you have Andy Reid, going to be in the Hall of Fame, we know that, is now in a position to join an elite list of coaches, Big C, that won 2 Super Bowls during their careers. When you think about this, if the Chiefs beat the Buccaneers, Reid would join the great Vince Lombardi, the great Don Shula, which is the all-time winningest coaches in NFL history, Chuck Noll, Tom Landry, Tom Flores, the great Bill Walsh, Joe Gibbs, Bill Parcells, the great Jimmy Johnson, George Seifert, Mike Shanahan, Bill Belichick, and Tom Coughlin as the only coaches to win Super Bowls, Big C. And Reid would also join Lombardi, Shula, Coach Noll, Johnson, Shanahan, and Belichick as the only coaches to win back-to-back titles. It's a very difficult thing to do, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, just to get to back-to-back Super Bowls is a phenomenal feat, Charlton. But to be able to have multiple wins as a head coach in the NFL, we've seen so many teams that have gone to the Super Bowl on multiple occasions, Charlton, and not win one at all. Think about the Buffalo Bills. Think about the Minnesota Vikings, Charlton, who both have had 4 bites at the apple, and neither one of them has been able to swallow any of it. So for Andy Reid to be able to go back with the most dynamic quarterback in the history of the NFL, and both of these guys are potentially on the verge of building a legacy in Kansas City, that they can both accomplish that feat together and still have many more years in front of them.
So Eric Bieniemy's like, you know what? If I take a job elsewhere, I'm going to be with a losing team, and maybe they'll get rid of me in a year or 2 if I don't win a Super Bowl. It's not bad being in the passenger seat of Batman and Robin when you're calling the shots in Kansas City. It's all fair and love and war. I'm sure Andy Reid's going to hang him up sometime, maybe in the next 3 or 4 years. Not a bad place to get your internship if you Eric Bieniemy. Big C, Mahomes could join a list of multiple MVP winners. That list of multiple Super Bowl MVPs is a pretty short one. You have Bart Starr, you have Terry Bradshaw, Joe Montana, Eli Manning, and Tom Brady are the only multiple Super Bowl MVP winners. Each of those players, they played the quarterback position, which bodes well for touchdown Patrick Mahomes. Big C, your thoughts?
And when you have a guy coming into this game, Charlton, with the accolades that he brings, behind him, I mean, you think about the 3 dynamic seasons that he has had in the NFL. He was most likely the most productive quarterback in the NFL this past season. He set out the last game of the season. That's how far ahead he was of every other quarterback in the league, Charlton. And when you think about his record over the last 26 games that he has played as a starter, being 25-1, you have to boast well that he has a tremendous opportunity to be the MVP in back-to-back years in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he's definitely looking for another ring, and he'll probably get it. We're going to take what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. And just like in The Bachelor, I was telling you the other day, they had these women that show up for 3 weeks. They all get a chance to date this former football player down at Wake Forest. And after they all felt they got to know each other, they bring another group of women in. And one was Miss Universe, Big C. And there was a woman that got out of the car, and she walked up to him. Instead of saying, I'm looking for someone that I can grow old with and have walks in the park, maybe have a house with a picket fence next to the ocean, this girl got out of the car. She said, I want you. She tongue kissed him for about 20 seconds, Big C. And he said, I like you. So sometimes you got to get to the point. Getting the ring is not always easy, but it's easier when you get to the point. We'll take the Big C pause. In the words of the great Arnold Schwarzenegger, we'll be back. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. There's so many apps you can follow Big C Sports, and I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You think about all the things that happen in the media world. I want to thank Xfinity Comcast and also Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our apps pop up, and I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. I think about the 5 youngest quarterbacks, Big C, with 2 Super Bowl rings. Not the ring they're trying to get on The Bachelor, Big C, but championship rings. With the win touchdown Patrick Mahomes, he was surpassed the great Tom Brady as the youngest quarterback in history with 2 Super Bowl wins under his belt. Brady was 26 years old, if you recall, Big C, when he led the Patriots to a 32-29 win over the Panthers in their Super Bowl. And then the second 3 Super Bowl wins, Big C, for the Patriots during the early 2000s. Think about this. Mahomes will be just 25 years old and 143 days when they kick off in Super Bowl 55. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, this game will present history, Charlton, either way it goes.
Yeah.
Either Tom Brady will walk away with his 7th Super Bowl ring and only the third quarterback to start Super Bowls for 2 different franchises, Charlton. But, you know, Patrick Mahomes being the youngest quarterback to have started 2 Super Bowls, that's phenomenal in this day and age of tremendous athletes and the wealth of quarterbacks that they have in the NFL.
Yeah.
But when you look at what he did getting to this game, Charlton, he's defeated all the odds. He's had quarterbacks taken in front of him. He'll have players winning MVPs around him. But there's still nobody better than him right now in the league.
Yeah, I thought Bill Belichick was the reason they won all those Super Bowls. Big C. Maybe it's not. Who knows? But think about it. All-time conference series leads. It goes up for grabs, including the 4 Super Bowls played between the AFL and the NFL, Big C. The Super Bowl is tied between teams from the AFC and the NFC. The winner of Super Bowl 55, they're going to give their conference a 28-27 all-time record in Super Bowl competition. Roger Goodell must be loving that. The AFC, despite losing 13 consecutive Super Bowls against the NFC from 1984 to 1996, Big C, they can finally take the lead. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, when we look at this glorious league, Charlton, and how long it's been around and how many Super Bowls have been played, not many people would have realized, Charlton, coming into Super Bowl 55, that it was a dead heat at 27-27 between the leagues. So there's so much history in the making here, Charlton, and bragging rights for the next 365 days.
365 days is all fair level war. When you think about back-to-back droughts, Big C, it comes to an end. If the Chiefs can become the first team since the 2003-2004 Patriots to win back-to-back Super Bowls, Kansas City would join an elite list: the 1966-67 Green Bay Packers, the 1972-73 Miami Dolphins, the 1978-79 Pittsburgh Steelers, the 1988-89 San Francisco 49ers, the 1992-1993 Dallas Cowboys, the 1997 and 1998 Denver Broncos, and the early 2000s the Patriots as repeat champions. The Chiefs are trying to avoid joining the 1977 Cowboys, the 83 Redskins at the time, the 97 Packers, the 2014 Seahawks, and 2017 Patriots as defending champions that came up just a little bit short of the title game. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, you think about the list that we've covered coming into this scenario. You know, you talked earlier about teams that lost the Super Bowl and not being able to get back to the Super Bowl, which is an daunting task. And here, Charlton, where you're talking about teams that have won a Super Bowl and have an opportunity to repeat as the winner of the Super Bowl, a very elite list, Charlton. I believe you named off only 7 teams that have been able to accomplish that feat, and yet another 4 teams, Charlton, were not able to accomplish that feat. So we're sitting here looking at potential history once again, Charlton. Well, we will have history once again. Regardless, win or lose, the Chiefs will join one of those elite clubs.
It's like going to Vegas. You're going to win even if you lose, if that makes sense to you. The wild card, Tom Brady, can join yet again another exclusive club of quarterbacks. If the Buccaneers defeat the Chiefs, and I doubt it, think about this. With the win, touchdown Tom Brady, he would join Jim Plunkett, 1980 Raiders, John Elway, 1997 Broncos, Trent Dilfer, the 2000 Baltimore Ravens, Big Ben Roethlisberger, the 2005 Pittsburgh Steelers, Eli Manning, the 2007 New York Giants, and touchdown Aaron Rodgers, the 2010 Green Bay Packers, as the only quarterbacks to lead a wild card team to a Super Bowl title. In the process, Brady would also join Big Ben, also Manning and Rodgers, as the only quarterbacks to win the Super Bowl after winning 3 road playoff games. A very exclusive company. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charles, an exclusive company and a tough task, a tall hill to climb. I mean, but you know, this is what a competitor does. When presented with obstacles, Charlton, they'd be able to hurdle those obstacles when they're thrown at them. Tom Brady has defeated everything that has come at him in this 2020 season. I know it's been a season like no other with COVID-19 and all the problems that the NFL had to face, but they were able to get over those obstacles, Charlton, and make it to the Super Bowl. And now Tom Brady, 4 games in the playoffs to have an opportunity to host ring number 7.
I'm telling you, man, it's a great game, especially when you realize how difficult it was in this COVID-19 season. Big C, Brady can match Manning's unique record with a win over the Chiefs. He would join Peyton Manning as the only starting quarterback to win Super Bowls with 2 franchises. That means somebody thought they weren't good enough to keep. If they went on and won another Super Bowl, Big C, that's incredible. Manning led the Broncos to a victory in Super Bowl 50, 9 years after leading the Colts to a 29-17 win over the Bears in their Super Bowl game. Manning, Brady, Craig Morton, and Kurt Warner are the only quarterbacks to start for multiple franchises in the Super Bowl. It's incredible, Big C. And so for the guys that are going to trade teams this year, if you already won a Super Bowl, the future looks pretty bright. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, it's pretty good. Manning won with Indianapolis, with Indianapolis and Denver. You think about Craig Morton, Charlton. Craig Morton went to the Super Bowl as the starting quarterback with the Dallas Cowboys. He went back to the Super Bowl as the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos against the Dallas Cowboys. Kurt Warner was with the Rams and the Cardinals. But these are phenomenal feats, Charlton. We think about the number of quarterbacks in the NFL that have spent their entire career never reaching a Super Bowl. And yet you have a couple quarterbacks reaching the Super Bowl with multiple teams.
It's something about saying it's not the coach, it's me that got me there. That's why sometimes they trade coaches and they trade teams and you get a new start. It's just like The Bachelor. You get a new start in life when you got 50 women to choose from. Maybe you're not so laconic because the last one didn't work out. Big C, the odds are good when you got 50 girls trying to date one dude. The first home team to win a Super Bowl, the Buccaneers, will already become the first team to play in a Super Bowl from their own stadium, Big C. They'll make more history as the only team, if it happens, to win a Super Bowl on their home turf. But the problem is the universe makes them play the Kansas City Chiefs. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, to have a home field comfort level
Yeah.
there at Tampa, Charleston, is a unique environment to be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You don't get the full home field advantage, Charleston, because there's not going to be 80,000 people there in Raymond James Stadium.
Yeah.
I think the Super Bowl committee will find some way to sneak in 40,000 people into this game, Charleston, but it's still going to be an electrifying atmosphere.
You're saying they might do some shenanigans, Big C. That would be the first in the history of the NFL universe, if that makes sense. Shenanigans would happen. We don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be, in my opinion, it should be a good Super Bowl. There's so many good players on both teams, and it's kind of like what we want. And just like the argument for college football, well, if you're not undefeated, why would you get a chance to play in the playoffs? The Buccaneers, they had the worst record of all the championship teams for the divisions in the NFC and in the AFC, and they're in the Super Bowl because they had a chance to prove it on the field. When I think about the Super Bowl athletes, Big C, I don't think athletes like talking about passing the torch. You hear about touchdown Aaron Rodgers. People are saying that maybe he's going to get out of Dodge. Brett Favre didn't like it when they brought in touchdown Aaron Rodgers. He was king of the mountain at Lambeau Field for the Green Bay Packers. And even in the NFL, touchdown Joe Montana, he didn't like it when Steve Young was hanging around on the sidelines with him. A lot of guys just don't like that, Big C. So passing the torch is not something that they really think about. Think about this. Everything comes to an end. Every reign comes to an end. You think about which brings us Super Bowl 55. And so now that we have it, Mahomes and Brady, this is part two in their playoffs against each other when Brady was with New England. And the NFL can cap the season with two players that have been maybe the marquee quarterbacks in the league over the last couple of years. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they have been marquee, Charlton. When you think about the epic matchups that they've had against each other in New England and Kansas City, and even this year with Kansas City coming down to Tampa. You've seen Tom Brady perform on the greatest stage of all multiple times, Charlton, and come out victorious. We've been awestruck by Patrick Mahomes and what he's been able to do, how dynamic he has been with the football and the leadership of the Kansas City Chiefs. So this is a game of the ages, Charlton, old and young.
Yeah, it's old and young. Hey, you can't call Brady old. Whatever he's drinking, it makes him young, Big C. There was a movie called Back to the Future. I think Tom Brady understands what it is. It's all fair in love and war. But I think about, for some reason, it's been on the revenge tour of sorts. It began last season during the victory over the Chicago Bears. When you look at Mahomes, he was shown counting to 10 on his fingers, Big C, which might be how many Super Bowls that he'll have when it's all said and done for him. But think about this. He was counting on his fingers celebrating a touchdown pass. For the casual NFL fan, they may not really think about it, but a brief history lesson, Big C. The Bears, objectively, they made a horrific decision, in my opinion. They bypassed touchdown Patrick Mahomes in 2017 in the draft. They selected quarterback Mitch Trubisky. Remember that, Big C? The second overall pick. Mahomes went 10th to the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Bears actually made another, in my opinion, bonehead move in that draft. They also bypassed quarterback touchdown Deshaun Watson out of Clemson. He went 12th to the Houston Texans. That to me is amazing that so many guys miss and they're paid so much money to be GMs and head coaches. But it's always a recount for another day, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, when you look at the success that both of these quarterbacks have had in their career, all three of them have made the playoffs. But only Mitch Trubisky has not gotten a contract extension with the Bears. They've still been on the open market looking for a quarterback because they're not so sold on him with that franchise.
No.
Patrick Mahomes, I mean, looks at every team in the NFL that bypassed him. Not just the Bears, but there were 10 teams that bypassed him, Charlton, and him dropping to the Kansas City Chiefs. And they traded up to get him in that situation. Andy Reid, they knew what was there with Patrick Mahomes. Even though they had Alex Smith on the roster, just like with the Green Bay Packers, they had Aaron Rodgers on the roster. They drafted Love. They had Brett Favre on the roster. They drafted Rodgers. So teams are always looking to upgrade, and you always got a forecast for the future. When you look at quarterbacks get drafted in the first round, and teams say, well, they got a veteran starter. Does anybody cry when a team drafts a linebacker? You already got a veteran starting at linebacker.
No, they don't.
Or at cornerback, and you got a veteran starting at cornerback.
Nope.
Or even on the offensive line, Charlton, where you got a veteran. Why do the quarterbacks feel that they have to be such prima donnas and untouchable? They got to understand, just like everybody else on the roster, Management don't give a damn about you.
No, they don't. Remember Khalil Mack? He was drafted by the Raiders first round, and then when John Gruden got the job, he came in with his mastermind, media-made mastermind, and he traded Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack has been in the playoffs. Had he stayed with the Raiders, they wouldn't have been in the playoffs. Isn't that great for a mastermind coach, Big C? During the Chiefs' win earlier this season over the Baltimore Ravens, touchdown Patrick Mahomes. Again, he was shown counting. So he knows how to count how many touchdowns or how many rings on his finger he's expecting to have at the end of his career. But at that time, he counted to 4. Before this season, Mahomes was ranked 4th on the NFL's annual top 100 list. He was 4th. You got to wonder, who are the guys doing the counting? They gotta add their name to the count. It might have been your friend Mache and that other kid that they're always paying money and they're always wrong. Big C Mache and the, I guess the Kuiper's his name, whatever they are. But they had him 4 on the list. Ravens quarterback Superman Lamar Jackson, he was selected number 1. Think about that, Big C. On Sunday, touchdown Patrick Mahomes added another notch to his belt by dispatching Allen. Metaphorically speaking, he's dispatching everybody that comes across his path. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think you were one of those guys who voted for Jackson.
Hey, let's not say names.
But Jackson has never beat Mahomes in those head-up battles, Charlton. So I don't know how you can rate somebody above somebody who has never lost to him.
Yeah.
But when we think about Mahomes and he dispatches all the quarterbacks, Charlton, then everybody sings their praise. Everyone was talking about Allen being in the MVP chase.
Yeah.
That he should be considered for that, and not mentioning Mahomes. When you look at Mahomes, Charlton, he only played 15 games this past regular season.
Yeah.
In those 15 games that he played, Charlton, he led the NFL in passing. If you were rating the quarterbacks based on yards passed per game, Patrick Mahomes was the best quarterback in the NFL. He averaged 310 yards a game passing on the season. Deshaun Watson was second. He only averaged 306.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes was in the Super Bowl. So when Patrick Mahomes passes, those yards mean something.
Yeah.
Those are not chase yards. Those are catch-me yards.
Yeah, and just to clear my name, when I said that Superman Jackson was a better quarterback than touchdown Patrick Mahomes, I meant in the 40-yard dash. I wasn't talking about in the win-loss column, but it's all fair level war. But when you think about Mahomes, he's such a nice person. They think he's nice, but he's driven on the football field. If you don't understand Mahomes, think about it. He took a lot of that personal. That's why he was holding up his fingers, Big C. Not to be rude, but a fire burns inside of that man, and you can tell when he scores a touchdown, just the way he plays. He's never trying to give up on a play. He's always trying to find that extra yards. All pro voters put Allen on the same line with them. Remember that? They put Allen on the same line with Mahomes. Perhaps you'd be interested in purchasing some prime beachfront property across the street from Arrowhead Stadium. That's why I say, whether it's me or you or anybody, put your name on it, because a lot of the times people don't say that they were ever wrong. It's all right to admit that. It's not that Patrick Mahomes lacks respect for anybody. He has a lot of respect for Jackson and Allen, or even Trubisky for that matter. But at some point in time, just like the guy in The Bachelor, you're driven to win, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he's driven to win every time he's back on the stage. If people recall last year, Charlton, on a quarterback sneak play on a night game that he was playing, he had a dislocated knee.
Yeah.
He was back in the lineup 3 weeks later, Charlton, after this dislocated knee. A lot of players would be out a month, if not the rest of the season, Charlton. It took him 3 weeks to get back in the starting lineup with the Kansas City Chiefs, because he's so driven to be a competitor, Charlton, and not let his teammates down.
Yeah, he's driven. His father was a professional athlete. So imagine as a youngster growing up around your father, who brings you around professional athletes, and you learn the mentality. It just rubs off on you. That mentality rubs off. Barry Bonds was the same when his father played baseball over in San Francisco, so he learned a lot by being around his dad also. Even you look at Griffey, his father played baseball, and then when he went to Seattle, set records also, and it's all fair and level war. For Mahomes to potentially avenge his only playoff loss, which Brady helped engineer in an AFC title game, the NFL was all over that game, while working for his previous employer, that would be sweet to get the win over the guy that even the NFL helped beat you. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, when you think about those two battles that they had between Kansas City and New England that season, Charlton, those were epic battles.
Yeah.
Because, Brady had to come back in both of those games to claim victory. The game that they had up in Foxborough, It was a late field goal by Stepkowski to win the game for New England, 40-43.
Yep.
And even in the playoffs, Charlton, they were helped out by some NFL penalties and came back and won the game in overtime on Burkhead's 2-yard touchdown run.
Yep. It's all fair and level war. I even recall, I think I saw an interview where touchdown Patrick Mahomes said to go out there and have a chance to repeat and to do it against the best is something that he's excited about. It would be a special opportunity. He signed after suffering a toe injury in the Kansas City's divisional round against Cleveland, as you mentioned, Big C, being in the NFL's concussion protocol. If you're any player in any sport and you're looking at people that take time off for whatever reason, even not to jump on any player, but some quarterbacks, they got cut by their team because they didn't want to do what the coach said. Here's a guy that had a toe injury, had concussion protocol, and because he's so driven, he's in Super Bowl 55, Big C. It's all fair and level war. In only his third season as a starter, touchdown Patrick Mahomes is 6-1 in the postseason. And I believe the one game that he lost at home to the New England Patriots, I believe the NFL orchestrated that win for Brady. There was an offsides when an interception happened. Okay, maybe that happened. But there was also a personal foul call on Kansas City for hitting Tom Brady in the helmet. And they showed in the replay one time that it actually hit the shoulder pad. But sometimes people don't care when you get what you want. It's all fair and level war. I think about this, Big C. 6-1 in the postseason. The only blemish on the sparkling record, that 37-31 loss in overtime that we talked about 2019 in the AFC title game to Brady and the Patriots. There's no way in the universe that we'll have another shenanigan, at least I hope not, in Super Bowl 55. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you talked about coming into this game earlier, Charlton, that the leagues were even at 27-27 between the AFC and the NFC in Super Bowl victories.
Yeah.
When you look at this head-to-head matchup between Brady and Mahomes, they're even at 2 games apiece, Charlton. Brady won the first 2 games in 2019.
Yeah.
Mahomes has won the last 2 matchups between these teams. Last season, Charlton, when they played. And also, Charlton, earlier this year in Brady's first game in Tampa against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
So it's now 2-2 against the greatest of all time and the greatest of our time.
Yeah.
So who will come out victorious in this game, Charlton? Who will be the true gunslinger at the end of Super Bowl 55?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, well, I was wrong last time. I said there's no way Aaron Rodgers would lose at home again. But turnovers, it just happens. Sometimes your team has the willpower to do it, but pressure can bust a pipe, and Tampa Bay put a lot of pressure on Aaron Rodgers. I don't think they can put the same kind of pressure on touchdown Patrick Mahomes. We'll see what happens, Big C. I want to ask you, before we close out in the final few minutes, I love talking football and talking about the history of the game. But, you know, we talked about the late Hank Aaron and how he was so iconic, not just in the United States, but all around the world when it comes to being excellent, Big C, and how he had to do whatever he was able to accomplish with a lot of hate and a lot of vitriol. And I know sometimes people don't think about that. They say, oh, well, that was then, this is now. But I think about this. In Major League Baseball, and we're talking about who's going to get into the Hall of Fame. We do it on our show. We talk about the Say Hey Kid, and then we talk about the home run king, Barry Bonds. And I know that Hank Aaron hit more home runs, but the Major League Baseball doesn't acknowledge everything that Hank did in Negro League, Big C. But when it comes to liking people and not liking people, Hank Aaron got a lot of hate mail for being a good guy. When you think about some of the guys that maybe or won't get into the Hall of Fame, you think about Curt Schilling. Curt Schilling has considered by many people as a racist, a bigot. He even put it in writing. And he's a great pitcher. He was a great pitcher. But as being a bigot, the networks knew it, but when the public found out, they cut him and they fired him. Didn't keep him out of work. So what is it about a bigot like Curt Schilling, and people are saying that he may or may not get into the Hall of Fame? Big C, they knew he was a bigot when they gave him broadcast work. They knew he was a bigot when he played baseball, but he never got death threats like Hank Aaron, who was not a bigot. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, those people that hire him had the same mentality. It's just like when we talk about NFL coaches who don't get hired that are African-American descent,
Yeah.
because they don't have the same outlook as that white owner has, Charlton. But Curt Schilling was just a part of society. He was a big Trump backer, Charlton, spoke in that same type of rhetoric that Trump spoke in. And when you're in those meetings, Charlton, with those executives, they have that same type of dialogue.
Yeah.
But the problem with Curt Schilling is that he came out publicly.
He wrote
with
it down.
He
Yeah.
just didn't keep it in the meeting room.
Yeah, he didn't keep it in the meeting room, and that's the same thing. And so it just oppose Curt Schilling as a bigot, and people are saying, well, because of whatever reason, whatever shenanigans he was involved in, that he may not be getting into the Baseball Hall of Fame. I just draw that. Let me ask you, and I know you don't know the answer, but I just want to get your thought. We just lost Hank Aaron, but he had to know, just like Jackie Robinson, they were excellent. I mean, they were like the cream of the crop, and they were hated for being excellent. So how is Schilling so loved when he was even in Boston? We know Boston has had a city full of racial strife and division, especially for people who did not have a uniform on, either for the Celtics or the Red Sox or for the Bruins or for the Patriots, Big C. I wonder what conversations they would have had about how mainstream media that loves them now, that also never condemned the public when they had such racial enmity, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, ever since white society has been in America, they've always felt that everything belonged to them. Everything that they've even stolen or kept other people away from, they felt that it belonged to them. When they took the land from the Native Americans, Charlton, they felt that the land belonged to them, not the rightful owners of the land, the Native Americans. They kept blacks in prison in America, Charlton, because they felt that they belonged to them, that they didn't have the right to be a member of society. When blacks finally got their freedom in America, Charlton, they opposed the blacks being able to do the same thing that whites could do, Charlton, because they knew that blacks had a mental and physical advantage over them because they watched the growth of the Negro culture, Charlton, through slavery. And once they became free and got out and could do the same things that whites could do, they would always do them better because they had a work ethic, Charlton, to keep their nose to the grindstone and stay straight ahead. Don't lose focus. They saw that in athletics also, Charlton, when they saw the black man starting to compete in athletics. They knew that they could not compete with the stress and the speed of the black man, Charlton, so they did everything that they could to oppress them and keep them from competing on the same field because they knew that they could not compete mentally or physically with them, Charlton. And that's how society has been, to oppress and to hold back a culture, Charlton, of people because you are in fear that they are superior to you in every way. So you do everything because of the numbers that you possess and the power that you have to oppress these people, regardless of whether it's in life, whether in sports, whether it's in voting. If you are so in fear of people, Charlton, just state it. Don't go out and injure and harm people because of your inequities, Charlton, in society and in the world, which is what we have witnessed for decades in this country. People can sit back and say, oh, why you want to talk about racism? Because why do you perpetuate racism? Why do you talk about having equal rights? Because you fight against us having rights. Why do you obstruct votes? Because you're scared that if we vote, then we have a say-so in the American way in America. So that crosses all barriers, whether it's in sports or whether it's in everyday life, Jonathan. You should not have to pass bills if we're all Americans to give black people rights.
Very well said. I even think about Barry Bonds, Big C. You know, his father played Major League Baseball as well, so he learned a lot from his father. But Barry Bonds, of course, Hank Aaron, if you count all the votes, if you count all the home runs, he's the real home run leader. But they didn't count the Negro League. They only wanted their players, not their stats, Big C. So Barry Bonds, he has a lot of vitriol from media also. He saw how the media was mean to his father as a young boy, and he grew up learning how to just stay focused. Stay focused. There are a lot of people that shake your hand when you succeed. Some of those same people, they were hoping that he would fail, Big C, and now the only thing these media, these sports writers can do to keep him out of the Hall of Fame is to accuse a man of doing something that he was never convicted of, Big C, but sometimes an accusal in the mind of mainstream can be a conviction. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, as they went into baseball's Hall of Fame and took out all the people who had improprieties on their records, whether it was criminal, whether it was drugs, whether it was alcohol, infidelities, all those things, The Baseball Hall of Fame would be no bigger than the hall closet in your house.
Yeah.
That's how many dirty people are in the Baseball Hall of Fame, whether it's a writer or a player or an owner, Charlton. There's a lot of dirty people in the Baseball Hall of Fame. It would be no larger than the hall closet in your house. So when they talk about expulling people from the Baseball Hall of Fame and keeping them out because of things that have been said about them in the media, Charlton, all they have to do is go look at the background of the people that are in there, and there'll probably be about 5 left.
Yeah, don't look at the background, Big Ski. That might open up a can of worms. Roger Clemens also, and Scott Rowland, Todd Helton. But I just think about how the media, they had so many nice things to say about hammering Hank Aaron, but then they have nothing negative to say about Curt Schilling, who his vitriol is the same thing that Hank Aaron had to put up with.
Well, think about this, Charlton.
Yeah.
Everybody says something nice about Hank Aaron now that he's deceased.
Yeah.
When he was a player, think about this, and I told you earlier, Atlanta had the two most hated black men in America. In the 60s, it was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, the most hated black man in America. Who the hell you think they were polling? They were polling white people. White America hated Dr. King. In the 70s, Charlton, that city had the same distinction. Hank Aaron was the most hated man in America. Damn, he was black also.
Yeah.
Who were they polling? They were polling white people. So those same white people that were hating Hank Aaron when he was playing, many of them were alive when he passed away, Charlton. And they're going to say if they care about it now? No. They hated him then. They hated him when he passed, Charlton. They can only say something nice in the media.
Yeah, always nice in the media, never while someone could really benefit from it. That's why I appreciate doing Big C Sports. There are things that people just will not talk about because they say, oh, that's political. When we talk about fairness and equality, everything should be fair when it comes to the United States of America. That's just my opinion. We talked about a lot of what's going on for the Super Bowl and Super Bowl 55. Big C, the matchup is going to be tremendous in my opinion. I hope it's going to be a great game. Many of our Super Bowls have been good games. There was a stretch when they were not such good games, but this one has the potential to be. Also, as we close out, there's a big game tonight in Philadelphia. You have the LA Lakers. They're playing, well, actually, I want to be honest with them. The defending NBA champions, Los Angeles Lakers. Big C, last I checked, they are from the West Coast, so they bring a lot of flavor into Philadelphia, Big C. There's a number one Western Conference seed versus the number one Eastern Conference seed. We don't give out scores, but it's great when teams come from the West Coast and they show people on the East those championship trophies. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they need to hope that they don't choke on a cheesesteak, Charlton.
Yeah, it's all fair, Leavenworth. I look forward to having a great Super Bowl. We'll do more previewing the Super Bowl 55 coming up. Big C, back in the day. There's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, I'm waiting on the Rumble in Tampa, Charlton. It's going to be about 9 days away from where we are right now. Looking forward to Super Bowl 55, getting all excited and hyped about that. Hopefully we'll have a dry, clear day on Super Bowl Sunday. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, first responders. Regardless of the element, you always do a wonderful job.
You always do a wonderful job. As my mama always says, time to rise and shine. You can rise and shine too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you, on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.